There are 4 levels of the protein structure in the entire protein architecture: the primary, the secondary, tertiary and quaternary. Previously the primary and secondary structures were discussed, and the primary structure means the polypeptide sequence of the protein or the polypeptide, the amino acid sequence, and secondary means the beta pleated sheet and the alpha helix. Now today we will discuss on tertiary and quaternary structures. What is a tertiary structure? The overall course of the polypeptide chain of a protein is referred to as its tertiary structure. The spatial distribution of the amino acids in the entire polypeptide, how they are spatially distributed, and the tertiary structure leads to folding and coiling due to the interactions among the various R groups, between R groups and R groups, and also again R groups and the water in the environment or in the surroundings. And also tertiary structure deals with the formation or the arrangement of disulfide linkages between the neighboring cysteine or far away cysteine residues, forming SS bonds, bridges. In the formation of the tertiary structure, some supersecondary structures are formed. These supersecondary structures are also called motifs. And what are those supersecondary structures? The supersecondary structures are a cluster of the secondary structures formed within the polypeptide when the tertiary structure unfolds. And the most common form of supersecondary structure is the beta alpha beta motif, or another common supersecondary structure is the beta hairpin. Alpha alpha motif is another supersecondary structure, and the Greek key motif. These are the important structures of the motifs which are found in polypeptides quite often. And what are protein domains? Domains are also formed during the formation of the tertiary structure. The protein domain is a part of the polypeptide which can evolve and can function quite independently from the rest of the protein or the polypeptide. Here this is the picture of the pyruvate kinase. This protein has 3 domains. So these 3 domains can behave or can act independently without disturbing the other 2 domains, and one domain may appear in a variety of evolutionarily related proteins. Domains may vary up to about 25 amino acids to up to about 500 amino acids in length, and the shortest domains are stabilized by metal ions or disulfide bridges. Metal ions means mostly divalent metal ions. Another thing that must be clarified now is what is a fold. Several supersecondary structures combine in an overlapping or a non-overlapping manner and form the tertiary structure of the domain. And for the formation of the tertiary structure of the domain, there may be a folding can take place, and this is called a protein fold. Now the classes of proteins based on the tertiary structure. The fibrous protein is the first class, and the name suggests that they are fibrous in nature, and they are also called scleroproteins. They are long filamentous protein molecules, and fibrous proteins are mostly found in animals, and they are known for their tensile strength. The fibrous proteins form a rod shape or a wire-like conformation, and the most common of the fibrous proteins are collagen, keratin, elastins, and etc. And they are usually structurally inert, and they may be used also as storage protein, and mainly they are structural proteins. They are used to form the connective tissues such as tendons, bone matrix, muscle fiber, and this is the schematic diagram of the collagen. There are 3 helices, that is, it has a triple helix structure. Another important fibrous protein is alpha keratin, and alpha keratin has 2 units. joined like in as shown in the figure, and this is the subunit, and this forms the coil like structure, and these several such coils join together to form the protofilament, and these protofilament again combine or associate among themselves to form the microfibril, and the microfibril is the structural component of the alpha keratin, and this formation of the microfibril is responsible for its high tensile strength and toughness. And another class of proteins that are different from the fibrous proteins is the globular proteins, and hence from the name it can be suggested that they are globular in conformation, and these globular proteins are highly packed and compact. So the packing density of globular proteins is quite high, and it is as high as or near about as high as the molecular crystals. Mathematically there is a parameter called packing density. So formation of the globular protein lies mainly on the basis that the hydrophobic side chains of the amino acids, several amino acids in the polypeptide, they are compelled to go inside the compact globular protein, and the surface of the globular protein, which is in direct contact with the aqueous environment, has the hydrophilic R groups, and so in such a way the globular proteins are formed. And it has been already said that suppose the non-polar residues such as leucine, valine, they are found in the interior of the globular protein, and the polar charged residues are on the surface. But here is an exception, that is in case of membrane proteins, the situation is just the reverse, because of the environment they find the membrane proteins, because in the membrane the outside is hydrophobic. So outside the globular protein, the outside region is filled with the hydrophobic side chains, whereas the inside or the interior has the hydrophilic amino acids. So for the protein stability, one is the electrostatic forces, second hydrogen bonding, third hydrophobic forces, and fourth is disulfide bonds. So among the different electrostatic forces, ionic interactions, dipole-dipole interactions, van der Waals forces are involved. And in the case of hydrogen bonding means one is the hydrogen bond donor and one is the acceptor. And hydrophobic forces means the hydrophobic side chains, they dislike the aqueous environment, so they tend to move away from or drift away from the aqueous environment, and this forms the basis of the interior of the globular protein. And the myoglobin is the first protein to be seen in atomic detail. What is the function of the myoglobin? It is a single polypeptide protein having 153 amino acids, and also it is the oxygen carrier in muscles. Myoglobin molecule has a heme complex inside it, buried in deep inside in the interior of the myoglobin. The idea of quaternary structure is valid in case of proteins that have several polypeptides joined together to form the functional protein. So before discussing the quaternary structure, let us know what is an oligomer. So oligomer is the term applied for the proteins which have more than one polypeptide. Subunits means the polypeptides which are involved in formation of the oligomer. And homomultimer, as the name suggests, that the subunits are of same type, and in case of heteromultimer the subunits are different. Protomers also the subunits, another name for the subunits. So the quaternary structure is the spatial distribution of the several polypeptides forming the entire protein molecule, and they are having interactions with each other. So one polypeptide is interacting with each other with their neighboring polypeptides, and the nature of the interaction determines the quaternary structure. So again, the most well studied protein having quaternary structure is hemoglobin. It is the oxygen carrying protein in blood and consists of two subunits of one type, that is the alpha, and two subunits of another type, that is the beta chains. So these alpha beta chains also they have heme. Similarity with the myoglobin, they have heme molecule moiety within the alpha chain and again also with the beta chain. And the diagram shows that alpha and beta chains are in close interaction among themselves. And again the hydrophobic forces, hydrophilic or electrostatic forces, again hydrogen bonding, they are all involved. So one term is quite applicable now, or the term subunit interaction can be explained because the quaternary structure is based on the subunit interactions, how strong the subunit interactions are. So the subunit is the structural component of the of the protein, that is the single polypeptide, and in a multi-subunit protein the interactions among the substituents among the subunits are by salt bridge, interchain disulfide bonds, hydrogen bonds, and also the hydrogen bonds are involved within the polypeptide backbone and with their side chains, and interactions between subunits tend to have hydrophobicities between those of the protein's interiors and the exteriors. And this diagram shows the several viruses have their capsids, and these capsids are formed from the quaternary structure or this type of interactions between the substituents or the protomers or the subunits, and these are so compact that they are like a more or less like a sphere. These capsids are very important because they are the structural component or the structural backbone of the entire virus, because the genome is resides inside the capsid and the capsid is highly stable. So these are the interactions between the capsid subunits and they form the stable capsid structure. Hemoglobin, as we know that they have two types of subunits, alpha and beta, and the amino acid composition of the hemoglobin can be altered because of mutation, and if in some cases the beta, in some situations or the disease situation, the beta subunit has a particular glutamic acid or glutamate residue that is hydrophilic, and it has been replaced by valine that is hydrophobic. This alteration makes the hemoglobin molecule a mutant hemoglobin, and in such situations the individuals who suffering from that mutation also suffering from sickle cell anemia. And for this minor, it may seem that it is minor alteration, but the effect is quite enormous, and the red blood cells have the shape of a sickle, so hence the name sickle cell anemia. So one question may arise in our mind, that how is the protein folding taking place, because the protein has to fold, and we are seeing that they are folding because they form the tertiary, then again the quaternary structures and so on. So there is a mechanism, there must be a mechanism for protein folding because they are folding in nature, and several experiments have been done in the past where scientists have shown that loss of protein structure results in the loss of protein function. Hence the structure has to be very precise to perform the protein function in the biological system. And one very beautiful experiment was done in the past by Christian Affinson, where he has shown that the amino acids composition or the arrangement of the amino acids in the polypeptide chain is very important to maintain the structure of the amino. That means the amino acid sequence of a protein is very vital for its three-dimensional structure. and the experiment he performed was with the enzyme ribonuclease. Ribonuclease, the sequence have been already known, and there are 4 disulfide linkages within the ribonuclease molecule, ribonuclease A. Affinson found out the activity of the enzyme. Then he treated the enzyme with some denaturants such as urea or high concentration of beta-mercaptoethanol or guanidinium hydrochloride. These are the common denaturants, and he found that the composition after treating with the denaturant, the activity of the enzyme was totally lost, and he termed the name that situation as scrambled ribonuclease, because the entire structure has been jeopardized by these denaturant. Finally, after removing these denaturants by dialysis or whatever, he added a trace of beta-mercaptoethanol, and here this beta-mercaptoethanol trace is behaving as a catalyst, and soon he found out that the entire scrambled ribonuclease has returned to the native form of ribonuclease, because the function has been more or less recovered. So, scrambled ribonuclease has regained its functional activity that was previously lost. So, the conclusion he drew was the amino acid sequence of a protein determines its 3D structure, and the 3D structure is responsible, proper 3D structure is responsible for its activity. And so we can define the native state of a protein, that is the form of the protein which exists naturally, and the denatured state which was found, which was the scrambled ribonuclease. Denatured state of the protein was the state, or is the state of the protein when the native state is lost. And for maintaining this native state, the non-covalent bonds are very important in the entire polypeptide. They are, again I mentioned, hydrogen bonding, salt bridges, disulfide linkages and hydrophobic interactions. Now, there are some studies that are done where the propensities or the tendencies of some amino acids for forming alpha helices, beta sheets or beta turns are studied, and again there is a mathematical parameter which is used to compare between the amino acids, which are those amino acids which are highly they have high favorable conditions for forming alpha helices or beta sheets or beta turns, and the conclusions were the residues such as alanine, glutamic acid and leucine tend to be present in alpha helices, whereas valine or isoleucine, those which have the branches at the beta carbon on the side chain they tend to be present in beta sheets, and glycine, asparagine and proline have a propensity or a tendency to form beta turns. And this is the classification of the amino acids based on their propensities or tendencies to form the alpha helix beta structure or beta sheets or beta turns. And the mathematical quantity is P alpha, propensity alpha. Alpha means propensity for alpha helix formation, propensity for beta and propensity for turns, beta turns formation, the likings of the amino acids. And the two scientists Chow and Fussman suggested that when the 4 helix formers out of the 6 residues are clustered together, there is a nucleation for the helix to take place. So, the nucleation site of the helix is formed within the 6 residues, the 4 are helix formers. So, these 4s are helix formers, means they have high propensity for alpha helix formation. Again, in the case of beta turns, in the beta sheet formation, 3 out of the 5 beta formers are clustered together. If this condition is fulfilled, then a beta strand may form. Let us come back to proper protein folding. So, polypeptides fold in a very rapid and stepwise manner, but theoretically it was calculated that if a protein has suppose 100 amino acid residues, if a polypeptide is made up of 100 amino acid residues, Levinthal calculated that if each residue can assume 3 different conformations, then the total number of structures would be 3 to the power 100, and which is equal to the value 5 into 10 to the power 47. And this entire sequence for folding, if it takes 10 to the power minus 13 seconds to convert one structure into another, the total search time will be around 1.6 into 10 to the power 27 years. So this is quite absurd, because protein folding in nature in the cell, when it is synthesized, it occurs very quickly, very fast. So clearly it is visualized that there is some paradox, and this is termed as Levinthal's paradox. Actually it will never happen like that, so slow. So there must be a mechanism which is guiding this protein folding, and the essence of protein folding is the retention of the partly correct intermediates. So as soon as the polypeptide is synthesized, there is some trial and error method occurs to form the polypeptide. Local structures are formed first, then that will be elaborated, and ultimately the entire polypeptide will be formed. So local regions which have significant structural preferences, though not necessarily stable on their own, will first try to be formed. So there are several models have been proposed, although the exact mechanism is not yet clear. The models are hierarchical model. That means the protein folding goes on, the entire process goes on in a hierarchical manner. That means the local area regions of the polypeptides fold up, and they finally interact with the nearby or far apart sections of the polypeptide, and ultimately from local level to the entire global level the protein folding occurs. And this is the graph which shows that from the folded conformation and abruptly an unfolded situation has been obtained, and with the help of increasing concentration of the denaturant. Similarly, from the unfolded to folded, there will also be an abrupt change from unfolded structure to folded. Another models, in the second model, it is called spontaneous collapse model. It may be remembered that hierarchical model and spontaneous collapse model, they are based on the idea that protein folding is a spontaneous process. These two models are based on that concept, that protein folding is spontaneous. But third model is known as assisted folding, and in assisted folding, that means from the name it suggests that there is some other factors, or again some other protein factors which are involved in assisted folding. That means they help the polypeptide to fold. So in the spontaneous collapse model, it has been shown that the polypeptide suddenly collapse into a conformation with the help of their hydrophobic interactions, and this sudden collapse of the entire unfolded polypeptide into a structure leads to the folding, and this is known as the molten globule. And this energy diagram suggests that thermodynamically this folding takes place after a series of transformations from the totally unfolded state, and here the entropy is quite high, and the entire diagram suggests that this is a energy funnel. This is the broader region where entropy is higher. Slowly the entropy comes to lower level, and finally it drops down to form the native structure. Here there are some intermediates. They are struggling to find which is the correct folding structure. In these types, these regions, this suggests that there are semi-stable intermediates are forming at random. Finally, they are colliding with each other, and some structures are energetically favorable, and they are climbing down the funnel and reaching at the bottom where the native structure is formed. In the assisted folding, the components are molecular chaperones. These proteins, chaperones, they guide either the incorrectly folded polypeptide or the unfolded polypeptide to the formation to form the complete correctly folded polypeptide, and this is the mechanism by which they can form. The chaperones are DNA J, DNA K, these are the molecular chaperones. They are also proteins in nature, and the chaperones are again classified as HSP70 variety and chaperonins. These are the two classes of chaperones. They perform the same function, that is assisting the folding. So, if there is any misfolding in the protein, what will be the consequence? The consequences of protein misfolding are very serious, and we are familiar with the names of the diseases like Alzheimer disease, Huntington disease, then scrapie form of mad cow disease, so on. These are all diseases where the reason is protein misfolding. So, protein misfolding is caused by prion diseases as a consequence, and all known prion diseases affect the structure of the brain and other neural tissues, and all are currently untreatable and universally fatal. The entire class of proteins are very vital in our entire maintenance of our life, and majority of the enzymes are protein in nature with very few exceptions like ribozymes where RNA is the enzyme. So, enzymatic functions are very important for a biochemical reaction to take place. So, muscle proteins also very important for maintaining our muscles, actin and myosin. Again, the antibodies, they are also proteins in nature, and they are involved in fighting away the harmful microbes from entering our body. So, they are also involved in our protection. So, from protection to maintenance, and then to maintain the tensile strength or the structure, and so proteins form a very vital class of macromolecules which we should emphasize on.